Welcome to my channel. I'm Scott, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of valuing Square stock by analyzing their financial statements and dissecting their financial ratios so we can determine if it's a buy or a sell. Let's get started with the model. This is a large cap company, 40 billion market cap. They're trading at $65 a share and they have 614 million shares outstanding. Let's look at their financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video. And free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. So it's kind of all over the place. Negative 15 million in 2020, then a nice positive over $500 million in 2021, a really small positive in 2022. Then their highest number ever, 800 million in the trailing 12 months. Net income is the profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. Positive in 2020 and 2021, but negative after that. Their financials look kind of odd. The numbers don't make that much sense. Revenue is a sales for the company. That looks great. It nearly doubles from 9 billion to 18 billion, then flat in 2022, up to their highest ever, 21 billion in the trailing 12 months. Look at that revenue growth in 2021. It grew 86% from 2020. It also grew 19% from 2022 to the trailing 12 months. We estimated 4 years of future free cash flows. We also estimated a terminal value, which is all cash flows past year 4, that's 83 billion. We discounted the numbers back to today using the weighted average cost of capital. We get a value of the company of $67 billion. We divide that by 600 million shares. And we get a calculated stock price of 109. They're trading at 65, so they're trading at a 40% discount. It's a really strong buy according to the model. They've been growing a lot lately, and they have a great price multiple, so the stock looks like a great buy at this point. There are 146 companies in the same industry as Square, and if they have a number in red, they're worse than the median. If they have a number in blue, they're better. They don't spend much on CapEx, 149 million. A really good debt to equity ratio. For every dollar of equity, they have 30 cents of debt. The median is 0.5, the average is 1.6. They don't pay a dividend. They generate more free cash flow than the average. They rank 8th in market cap, a little ahead of Palantir, but a decent amount behind Fortinet. They have a really good price to book. That stock price of a book value per share, 2.3. This means investors are paying $2.30 for $1 book value. Book value is equity. It's assets minus liabilities in the balance sheet. We can't look at their PE since they have negative earnings. Price to free cash flow is between the median and average. A really good price of sales. They generate lots of revenue, 21 billion. It's higher than Adobe, and Adobe's market cap is so much higher. And get this, it's higher than Palo Alto, Synopsys, CrowdStrike, and Fortinet, all combined. And look at their 5-year annual revenue growth rate, 47%. The only one better is Zscaler at 52%. Let's look at their latest 10Q. This is as of 9/30/2023. We'll start off with their income statement. Revenue for the third quarter of 2023, 5.6 billion, up from 4.5 billion in the third quarter of 2022. For the first 3 quarters of 2023, revenue of 16 billion, that's up from 13 billion. Let's see what makes up the revenue, the 5.6 billion. 1.7 billion from transaction fees. Subscriptions is 1.5 billion. 42 million from hardware revenue. The company manufactures Square terminals in China and sell them to some retailers. This is an example of their hardware revenue, which is a very small part of their total revenue. Bitcoin revenue is their biggest, 2.4 billion. You need to remember the Bitcoin revenue will fluctuate a lot depending on the price of Bitcoin. They mention it right here, depending on customer demand and the price of Bitcoin. You probably know this, but Bitcoin has done really well the past few quarters. Revenue is up in every category except hardware revenue. Their revenue increased 1.1 billion from last year. Most of that was Bitcoin. That grew 700 million. Most of their revenue is Cash App, 3.6 billion. Square is 2 billion. Of the 5.6 billion of revenue, 5.2 billion is in the US, 400 million international. So their revenue is up 9% in transaction fees, 25% in subscriptions, and 37% in Bitcoin. Let's look at their cost of revenue. Transaction expenses, 1 billion. Subscription and services, 259 million. The cost of the hardware is 78 million. Hardware is a loss leader. you can see they generate less revenue than they spend, but they make it up in transaction fees. And they don't make much money on Bitcoin. It cost them $2.4 billion, pretty much their revenue. But they do have a nice gross profit, $1.9 billion. But they do have a good amount of operating expenses, product development, $700 million, marketing, $500 million, G&A, $500 million, losses on loans, $177 million. So their operating expenses are higher than their gross profit. That gives them an operating loss. It is better than last year. They had an operating loss of $49 million last year, and now it's $10 million. Their net loss is $34 million, worse than last year. They paid a lot more in taxes this year, $50 million. Last year they had a tax credit of $17 million. So their loss per share is 5 cents, last year 2 cents, and they are increasing their shares outstanding. Last year was 593 million, now it's 611 million. Let's take a look at their balance sheet. Total current assets, 18 billion. Current liabilities, 9 billion, so current ratio of 2. Their total assets are 33 billion. Their biggest asset by far is goodwill, 12 billion. They had a really big acquisition in 2022 when they acquired Afterpay. They gave them $14 billion in stock for the acquisition. Most of that was goodwill. Almost all their goodwill, $11.7 billion, was from this one acquisition. Goodwill is what's remaining after you subtract the hard assets. The hard assets are receivables, inventory, cash, equipment. You have to take into account liabilities as well. So the net assets for this company was $2 billion. So they paid $11.7 billion more than their net assets. Total assets, $32.6 billion, up from $31.4 billion. Total liabilities, $14.7 billion, up from $14.1 billion. Their biggest liability is customers payable, $6.7 billion. This is what they owe customers for transactions. They have $4.1 billion of debt. Here's a breakdown of the debt. $1 billion is due in 2031, $1 billion due in 2026, a little over $500 million due in 2027 and 2026, another $1 billion due in 2025. Assets minus liabilities equals equity, $18 billion of equity. They raised $19 billion from selling their business, and they lost $700 million from running their business. Let's take a look at the statement of cash flows. This is for the trailing 9 months. So even though they posted a net loss of $179 million, they actually had $900 million of cash flow. A lot higher than last year of $130 million. In their investing section, they spent $100 million of PP&E. In their financing section, they paid down $460 million on a note. They borrowed $560 million. They paid back $1 billion on a facility. So they had a total cash outflow of $1 billion in their financing section. Let's take a look at the stock on Simply Wall Street. Its last price, 65, $39 billion market cap, down 1% in the past week, down 23% in the past year. Let's see what they say about the company. They're a technology company with a focus on financial services. Its products include Square, that makes commerce and financial services easy and accessible for sellers. Another product you're probably familiar with, Cash App. You can use their tools to invest money in stocks or Bitcoin. They also have Afterpay for connecting consumers and businesses. They acquired Tidal. That was in 2021. Tidal is a global music and entertainment platform that brings fans and artists together through music, content, and experiences. Square paid $300 million for the acquisition. Their other product, TBD, is building an open source platform and developer infrastructure which enables everyone to access and participate in the economy. They operate both in the US and internationally. They used to be known as Square. I usually call them Square still. They had a name change to Block in 2021. They were incorporated in 2009, based in Oakland, California. Simply Wall Street's valuation is 49. They say they're 33% overvalued. 41 analysts priced this stock at $80. Here's their historical stock price. You can see it peaked at $280 back in 2021. It was between $60 and $80 from 2018 to 2021, but now it's trading below that level. If you got the stock in 2017, you're probably flat right now, which is really annoying because you were up like 500-600% in 2021. But analysts are really bullish on the future of the company. Their 2023 revenue was $22 billion. The projection for 2024 is $25 billion, 2025 $28 billion, and 2026 $32 billion. Do you think it'll hit these levels? They were debt-free in 2015 and 16. Then they started adding debt in 2017 and 2018. Not too much by 2019, still under $1 billion. But they've done some big acquisitions, and their debt got up to about $6 billion in 2022. They cut it down to $5 billion, but still pretty high. But when you look at their equity, their debt is pretty small. Their equity is much higher than their debt. That's mainly because of all the goodwill. If you take out the goodwill, then their debt and equity is probably similar. The CEO's annual salary is $500,000, total compensation $13 million. A really positive sign is seeing a company add employees. They had 1,100 in 2015, and it's up to over 12,000 by the end of 2022. And the ticker trades on the New York Stock Exchange, Deutsche Börse, London Stock Exchange, the Bern, Mexican Bolsa, Wiener Bourse, EuroTLX, Bulgaria, Buenos Aires, Sao Paulo Bolsa, the Australian Stock Exchange, and last, the Chi-X in Australia. So let me know what you think. Give the video a like, subscribe, or comment below. If you'd like to get a custom valuation or just support the channel, you can become a member by clicking on the link in the description below. Thanks for watching.